Right. So the electric safety standards that we've been talking about, and again, for all the legislation lately, don't you think that they
Mm.
keep giving it the longest title ever? So I can never remember it. So I just call it electric regs. But if there is anybody here from Wales, this doesn't apply to you. This is only in England. So the electrical safety standards in the private rented sector, England, that came into force on the 1st of June 2020, basically stated that all new tenancies as of the 1st of July of last year would need to have a 5-year EICR before the tenancy starts. Um, Quite straightforward for all new tenancies, not difficult. We all knew that we needed an EICR before the tenancy starts. Landlord has to supply a copy of the latest report to any new tenant before occupation. That's absolutely fine as well, because we do that with the gas cert and all of the other documents. It's very important to note that renewals of tenancy will need to comply. Now, that was more relative previously, because we're nearing the date of the end of the transition period anyway. But any renewals that were done between July and now shouldn't have been done unless you actually had an EICR carried out and was on there was a valid EICR on the property, and you mustn't renew until the certificate had been done. Now, it applies to all tenancies in the private rented sector apart from resident landlords. So if there's a lodger agreement whereby the landlord's living in the property, it's the only part that it falls outside of. And another thing to note is that 10-year certificates are actually only valid for 5 years under the legislation. Most people only get 10-year certificates. One, if it's their own home and they own it and they're living there and it's not for rented purposes. And two, when you purchase a new build, they tend to be 10-year certs, but under the legislation, they will only be valid for 5. And as I think it was Eli or George earlier, no, it was George. George had said EICR by the 1st of April. Every single one of your properties should have an EICR by the 1st of April 2021. So we are on the countdown now. In fact, we've got 20 days left. And I have seen so many questions on Facebook surrounding the challenges that we face. I would like to say that there was a lot of petitions and lobbying to try and get the government to postpone that date because of COVID. But unfortunately, all of that failed, and we do still need to comply. But there is light at the end of the tunnel in terms of if you aren't able to comply, there's certain things that you can follow that should take away any risk of penalty. So, where this piece of legislation becomes interesting is surrounding the failed certificates, okay? Because particularly around the housing authority. So, I've amended my slide slightly. So if any of you have seen this before, it has changed slightly, and that's because the guidance has changed slightly. So failed certificates, code ones must be completed as soon as possible because that means that there is an immediate danger. Code 1 means imminently danger and must be dealt with as soon as possible. And code 2s must be completed within 28 days. Now, I would say 90% of our certificates have failed. It really is a huge amount that have failed and needed some form of work. And that work needs to be completed within 28 days, as it says on the tin. What you then need to do is, my previous slide said that you then need to provide a copy of the failed certificate and evidence of the works that you've carried out to the local housing authority within 28 days. Now, as you can see, I've changed it here to say 28 days of a request. And that's because when me and Tanya went through the other day looking up on the guidance, the Gov guidance clearly does state that you only need to provide it to the council upon request from them. So we only can be required to operate by following guidance from the government. Yeah, first and foremost, that's the place where you should get all of your information from. So anything I've told you today, make sure you double check it on Gov, so that, because basically I could be sat here spinning you a load of rubbish. I'm not, trust me. But anything where you want to get your information, trust it if it comes from the Gov website. So your only response, you only need to now send the failed certificate and evidence of the works to the council if the council request it. But what you do need to do is provide the tenant within the 28 days evidence that the works have been complete. And that can be either via a new certificate which states it's satisfactory, or an invoice that supports the work that was listed on the certificate has been conducted and carried out. As I said earlier, proven breaches of these regulations can result in the local housing authority imposing a financial penalty of up to £30,000. So it is huge penalties, and that money will go straight in their pocket if they are successful in prosecution. And as Ali pointed out earlier, I'm very sorry to confuse you, but the electric safety and the electric certificate standards, they don't form part of the Deregulation Act. So if you have not provided the tenant with an electric certificate, it will not have any bearing or effect on your ability to serve notice, but you could still be liable for a fine or any of the penalties that may come with it. Any questions there, Ali? I can't see any. So if not, I'm going to carry straight on, because this is surrounding access.
There are a couple if you want to take.
Oh, I can't see them. Go on. Yeah, go.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I've got one here from Ramandeep. Do you have to have a carbon monoxide detector, or will an adequate gas safety certificate be provided?
Okay. Carbon monoxide detectors are legally required in rooms that can burn solid fuel. So in rooms where there's an open fireplace, in rooms where there's a wood burner, anywhere where solid fuel can be burned, it is a legal requirement under the Smoke Alarm and Carbon Monoxide Detector Act of 2015 that one is in each room.
Okay, perfect.
So the gas cert wouldn't be sufficient, no.
No, absolutely.